I'll say this. I'm very happy to have met you. I'm glad that Monument Terrace is becoming even more special, it seems like, every week.
Yeah, I think so.
So we are connected in a weird way. You were the chaplain of a unit that a friend of mine, Mike Straley,
Right.
Was a part of. And then Mike then ventured around the country with his Eyes of Freedom memorial for these guys, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this is his flag. So
Really?
every time he comes to a different place, he'll put out a Marine Corps flag, and everyone that attends the memorial signs it. And then he leaves it with them and then continues on his way. But quickly, when I got here, Mike Straley was one of the reasons that I went to Monument Terrace in the first place, because I had moved here, and for months I wouldn't say, well, I avoided it.
Right.
I wanted to go to Monument Terrace on my own time. I didn't want to have to, I didn't know what it was, and I was kind of scared. And Straley hit me up, and he's like, if you have not gone down there yet, go and meet Steve Bozeman. He's like, if anybody, just go meet him. And so that next day, I think was Friday, and I went down, and I rode up on my bike, and I was kind of out on the street, and Steve yelled at me, and he's like, hey, you look like a Marine, come here. And so I was like, all right. So I walk up to him, and I'm like, I'm supposed to meet this guy, Steve Bozeman. And he's like, that's me. And it was like, it was so like perfect the way it all happened. And then since then, I've come to meet you. And what is your name, actually?
It's Eric Malmstrom. Well, I go by Eric, but yeah, I was the chaplain for 3rd Battalion, 25th Marines back in '05. I was actually started in the Navy back in the '80s. I was an electrician on a submarine. I was on the USS Haddock, an old fast attack boat. Did 6 years of that and got out, swore that I was never going to come back, and went to school after my first 6 years. So finished up my bachelor's, and then went off to the seminary, and had a professor there who ended up being the deputy chief of chaplains for the reserve side, Dan Guard, and he bugged me every day. Said, hey, you'd make a great Navy chaplain, and I'd say, no way, not going to do it. And he just kept bugging me and bugging me. He just bugged me every day until I finally said, okay, I'll do it. And he swore to me, he said, you're going to love it. You never have to deploy. It's 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year. You know, we haven't deployed in years. So, you know, you're not going to have to go anywhere. It's going to be great. And he was the one that had to sign my orders to go to Iraq in '05.
How did you feel about that?
He felt awful about it. You know, he saw my wife in the grocery store, and he'd duck behind the bread aisle and hope she wouldn't see him. And
he didn't send himself as tribute?
No, he didn't.
Did he have that option?
He did not. No. But yeah, that was the only bill that they had available to me when I went back this was on the reserve side. So the only bill that they had open was for 325 to me.
So you went to school, you did well, you got suckered into being a chaplain for some of these guys right here.
Yep.
When you got deployed, were you directly attached to these guys specifically, or?
I was the chaplain for all of 325. So we had about 1,000 guys, give or take.
And that's a reserve unit out of Ohio.
Right. We brought on, we had a lot of extra guys that came along with us, like the recon Marines, these guys with the tracks. So we had a lot of guys. No, I think they were part of Lima Company, but a lot of the tracks came from Gulfport. So we had a lot of people from all over the place that joined us for that deployment. Most of the guys were reserve.
And this was 2005?
Right.
And you were in, where at in Iraq?
We were in Haditha. so just outside of Al Asad. So if you follow the Euphrates River from Baghdad on its way up to Syria there, we're kind of halfway between, just outside of Baghdad.
Damn. And how long into the deployment did all this happen? Because this was one incident, right?
It was. We started taking casualties right away. It was, oddly enough, March 25th was our first casualty. So 325 was our first casualty. So coming up here shortly. Mm-hmm. And we started taking ones and twos. And then we had
now when these start happening, what's your position? Are you out with them when they're working? Are you secure to the base and you?
For the most part, they kept me back inside the base, but I did go out to some of the FOBs. I would go out and visit the FOBs. They didn't like me out too much because it was pretty kinetic, and they didn't want to lose their chaplain. They didn't want to lose their battalion surgeon, things like that. So they kept pretty close tabs on us. They didn't want me too far outside the wire. But I did get out quite a bit. This was August when this happened. This was early August. We had it was 2 sniper teams that we lost. They were co-located, and the position got compromised. So they took out those 2 sniper teams. Right after that, they sent out a bunch of guys trying to find the ones that took out the snipers, and so that's when these guys got hit. It was
so this was in retaliation,
right,
to the sniper fire.
Right.
Now, when you go out, sorry, I'm still stuck on I'm trying to put myself in your position.
Yeah.
Did you carry a weapon?
No.
No. How did that feel being out there with no protection outside of God's grace?
Let's just say the pucker factor got pretty high sometimes. I would, if I get into a Humvee, we always had a gunner up on top on a 50 cal, so he would sit his rifle inside somewhere. So I would casually ask, so where did you set your rifle? Where did you set your
so you knew
any clip? Yeah, just in case I needed it, I knew where it was.
How old were you when in 2005?
I was I was now you're gonna make me calculate all this.
Just round about.
I was about 30.
You were about 30?
Yeah.
Okay, and you had never
early 30s.
You had never been in combat before, right?
No, I'd been like I said, on a submarine,
right?
Which is its own kind of pucker factor when you get down to what they call test depth.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is creaking and groaning. You're living with this constant threat all the time.
Yeah, no, that's gangster. I would never do that. You can't pay me any money.
Yeah.
I actually got into a few arguments because I wouldn't splash in a track.
Yeah.
Because those things are just.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so you're 30 years old and it's your first time in combat, and you've got kids around you who are essentially in charge of keeping you safe.
Yeah.
What does that feel like? Or do you even realize that you're an adult and they're children?
You don't really think about it that way, but it was kind of weird. I had a lot of people that urged me to carry a weapon. They tell me, hey, just go down to the armorer. You can stick a 9mm in your side pocket. Nobody will even know you've got it. You got to have something because the Taliban's not going to care.
Yeah.
And I'd say nope. I'm just going to go. And it was interesting talking to the guys. Like when we were out at we called it the Pink Hotel. We were out at this. It was this great big pink building right on the Euphrates. I was out there with a bunch of the guys, and I could see them. As soon as I'd walk in, you'd see them kind of tense up for a minute, but then they would see that it was the Chaps, and you'd see them just kind of relax. And they'd all say, you know, hey, I'm loaded for bear, and if Chaps can be out here armed with nothing but the Word of God and his faith, then I'm going to be okay. God's with us. We're all right. So I could see that influence that I had on them.
Did that return like make you feel even stronger? Like,
It did. But they were also like super protective. They were very, very protective of the Chaps. They didn't want anything bad to happen. I knew they were all looking out for me. Even though I had one guy assigned to me, they all made sure that I was well taken care of. So I didn't have a whole lot of fear there.
So you create like a real bond with these guys.
Oh yeah.
And now when you start to see them go and with these casualties, what is your role? Like, are you with them as they're going, or are you just kind of like reading last rites to Marines that are no longer here?
It was mostly giving a blessing, doing the last rites after they had passed. Sometimes it was moments, sometimes it was hours afterwards, but it was usually pretty close proximity, because most of the time, not all the time, they would bring the casualties in. They'd bring in all the wounded in the KIA back to either Haditha or Heat, our two main locations, and they'd bring them all in, and then I would say a blessing over them, and then we typically send the guys either on to the next echelon of care if they're wounded, try to get them taken care of, or we would bag up the guys and send them back home to mom. So it was, but they made sure that we did all the proper identification, everything first. So
you were a part of that whole process?
I was. So I would make sure that they were identified correctly, put them on a helicopter and send them back home.
Now, I can only imagine that's not what you knew. Like, you had no idea you were getting into that when you signed up. So as it's happening, as you're learning of your new responsibilities, like, how do you deal with that? What's going through your mind?
It was pretty tough at first. You kind of have to kind of grow into that. The first few casualties, it was kind of a shock, because usually there wasn't a whole lot left when the guys did make it back. So I would say a blessing over whatever I had. As it kind of wore on, as we were at first, like I said, it was just ones and twos, and it was hard, but it wasn't really difficult. When we lost those two sniper teams, I was really close to a lot of those guys, and that was really difficult. After this, I remember just kind of sitting in the chapel, like almost in a fetal position, just thinking, what the heck am I doing here? And why did God choose me to be here? Felt like I was doing nothing. Felt like I was kind of useless to everybody that was there. And this is kind of how God works at times. That same day, I got a letter from a former church member who served in the National Guard, and she sent me this letter that arrived that day, saying, hey, Pastor, isn't it great that out of all the pastors in all times and all places, God chose you to be there at that time with these guys? Isn't that awesome? And it was a pretty powerful letter to read. Just at that time, that was just the kind of the kick in the pants that I needed. But I also did the combat first aid courses. so that all my corpsmen were comfortable with me being in the battalion aid station as well. So I would be in there with them as the casualties are coming in. So I'm, applying pressure to wounds, praying with guys, doing all that kind of stuff, helping out with the corpsmen while that whole process was taking place, and then helping out with the identification so that these guys didn't have to be burdened with all of that.
So they went out to retaliate on the sniper position getting taken over.
Yeah.
And they hit an IED or RPG?
It was an IED.
Okay.
It was a mine. I think it was a double stack.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Where they take the hacksaw blades, and they'd cut them in half, and they'd put a little block of wood on each side of it, and then they would have two in the road. So it had to be the size of a tank or the size of a track. So as soon as he would run over both of those, he would close contacts on both sides and detonate the mine underneath. So it hit from underneath.
Damn.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
So this was one track?
It was. It was one platoon. There was one survivor from that platoon. I can't recall his name, but just before they got on the road, somebody grabbed him and said, "Hey, we need you in this other track." So we said, "All right, catch you on the flip side." And he went to that other track. And so there was one guy from the platoon that survived this.
Holy shit.
Yeah. One of the guys, his dad, and we've been talking a lot, sending emails back and forth. He was just worried about his son. So a strong Christian man called me up all the time, or didn't call, but emailed all the time. So we had frequent conversations via email.
This is the dad of that survivor?
No, of one of these guys.
Of these guys.
And yeah, that was pretty rough. And his name was the first name I saw on that memorial we had up there at Monument Terrace. So yeah, it brought back a lot of memories, seeing that up there.
So this was, I'm assuming, the worst day, the worst incident of that deployment. But this wasn't the last. Oh
no. There were many more. We sent out. There was this one sucked. We had. There's a couple bad days I could tell you about. One was one of the tank crews. They were out doing some patrols, and the tank hit a mine, and so the guys survived just fine in the tank. It didn't take them out. They unloaded the tank crew, got them in a high back, and they decided they're going to go back and they're going to go look for all the mine detecting equipment. So they go back and they get it. They come back out to the site, and for whatever reason, they decided they were going to take a slightly different route as they were on the way back. And these guys hit another mine that was buried. So the same guys that just survived a mine, they got hit by a second one. There wasn't much left of these guys, so they brought them back on stretchers, and I was picking up arms and legs, and making sure that everything matched, that we had the right legs with the right guy, right and the left foot with the right bodies and things like that. It was pretty horrific to put all those guys in the right spot. And they told us, we've got 5 KIA. So me and a couple other guys, we got them into body bags, and we were loading them onto a helicopter to send them home. And we, at the same time, we all kind of realized that, wait a minute, we've got 4 bodies here, and they told us we had 5 KIA. Where's the 5th? And this is while the helicopter's going, so we can't talk to each other. And we looked around the helicopter and we saw a poncho liner kind of wadded up inside the helicopter. And we all kind of got the same idea at the same time. We went over and grabbed this poncho liner, and it was the torso of the 5th. That's all that was left of him. So we grabbed another body bag and put him in that, and sent him home. The first kind of mass casualty that we had, this is a crazy story. This was fairly early on. It was March. It was Mother's Day, Saturday before Mother's Day, and we'd gotten a bunch of mortar rockets that hit the dam, and so we sent out a QRF to go find the guys, and they got hit in an ambush. One of the guys out of that, I know I'm kind of jumping around. One of the guys got a Navy Cross. One guy, Silver Star. A whole bunch of Bronze Stars that came out of that one. These are some badass Marines. But I'm up on the dam, and I'm seeing this in the distance. I could see I could hear the gunfire. I could see the flares going up, the green flares for the troops in contact. So I'm watching all this from a distance, and I'm praying my heart out, praying like I never prayed before. And, kept getting word back, we've got 1 KIA, 2 KIA, 3 KIA, and there were, I think, 4 or 5 guys, I forget now. I think it was 5 guys died that night. And they brought them all back in. One of the guys that was there with us, Doc Nutter, he was a Vietnam vet that decided to go back in and get his retirement as a medic. He was a Marine in Vietnam, and again, he was a firefighter EMT. So we thought, I'll go back in as a corpsman and go finish up my retirement. But he and I were kind of cleaning up that night, and we loaded him on the helicopter, and he taught me about saluting as that helicopter was leaving. So the 2 of us stood there at salute as this helicopter was taking off. And I'm thinking, man, there's gonna be 5 moms that wake up tomorrow to the worst Mother's Day of their lives.
Damn.
But they were doing what they called Oscar teams at the time, and they brought them in for these guys, the survivors, and they said, we only want the people that were directly involved in this incident, only the guys that were there. And so all the survivors, they're like, you're going to be there for this Oscar team, right, Chaps? And I said, well, I wasn't there. They're like, no, you're coming with us. I said, okay, fine. So we're sitting in the big room, and they're kind of going around the circle, and they're talking about what it was like. First guy gets up, guy that won the Navy Cross, and he says, well, looked like hell had opened up, but I knew where I was going because of my faith in Christ, and so prayed that he would help me to save as many guys as I could and take out as many bad guys. So this guy hops out of his 7-ton, running between a crossfire, bringing all the dead and the wounded and loading them onto the truck. So he's running back and forth doing that. Next guy says the same thing. He was a Silver Star winner, Schuler. First guy was Corbin. Schuler, he gets up there, and he's grabbing every weapon he can find, firing at the bad guys. Same thing goes all the way around the circle. They finally get back to me, and they're like, Chaps, what it was like for you? And I said, well, I was standing up on the dam, and I was praying. And they all looked at me, they said, no, you weren't. You were with us. I said, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, we waited for you to get out on the truck to come with us. You were with us. You were there. I'm like, I was on the dam. And they said, no, you were with us. And I could not convince them that I wasn't there with them, because they saw me there. So.
Are you sure that you weren't?
So I'll leave that up to you.
Wow.
I'm 100% sure that I was standing on the dam that whole time, but they were convinced that I was there.
I mean, maybe you were praying so hard and you were just like out of body experience or something.
I'll leave that to you to come to your own conclusion on that one. But that was a pretty wild one. Yeah. Another one, another heavy duty day was I'll tell you a couple other stories. One was right after these guys. I was down in heat. I was down at one of the fobs out in the middle of nowhere, and needed to get a ride back. And they said, "Yeah, we can give you a ride back to heat, and we've got a spot on one of these tracks, so you can just hop on this track and you can go back." This was right after this incident, and every fiber of my being said not only no, but hell no, I'm not getting on one of those tracks after what happened to these guys. But I thought about it. I said, if I refuse to go on this, it's going to crush the Marines that are attached to the tracks. It's going to crush everybody else. I looked over at my assistant, my RP, and his eyes were like this big, thinking, hell no, he didn't want to get on that thing.
Oh, I forgot about the RP.
I said,
was he doing everything you were doing?
He was. I was like, RP, grab your trash, we're going. He's like, sure. He's like, sir, are you sure? I said, yeah, grab your trash, we're getting on that track. And yeah, so that bumpy ride, that whole way back, and there's a lot of heavy duty praying going on there, because they had just cleared a bunch of IEDs from that road that we took. So you're just wondering, is there one that they missed? And especially after what happened to these guys. But I had to get on. I had to be on that. Another incident, I was going from Haditha down to Heat. This is I'll tell you a funny one first. We need a funny one. We were going. Oh, we were going into Al Asad. We were going from Haditha into Al Asad, and the only spot they had for me was up in the lead vehicle. So I said, "Well, roger that. I'll go in the lead vehicle. No problem with that." And they said, "Well, if we run into anything suspicious, if you're in the lead vehicle, you need to run ahead of the vehicle and sweep for mines." I said, "Okay." So we're going down the road. Sure enough, hey, that looks a little funny up there. Go check it out. All right. So I popped the hatch, and so I'm running in front of this Humvee, front of this whole convoy, looking for mines, and thinking, man, that'd be sweet if I found an IED. That'd be awesome. Didn't find anything. Get back into the Humvee, disappointed. This happened like 4 or 5 times, going on this convoy. Eventually I made it back into Haditha, and I get this notice, hey, Sergeant Major wants to talk to you. Okay, great. So I go up, talk to the Sergeant Major, and I get one of these chaps. Sir, with all due respect, there are 3 people in this battalion who are not allowed to sweep for mines. The battalion CO, the battalion surgeon, and you, sir. With all due respect, we don't want you out there sweeping for mines. We don't want to lose our chaplain. I was like, shit. All right.
So they were just fucking with you?
So yeah, of course, all the other Marines, they loved it. They thought it was awesome that I was out there sweeping for mines. But
oh man, I've never even heard of that. They would have said, I'd be like, hell no, I'm not getting out.
So yeah, I was out there running, sweeping for mines.
We were attached to engineers. They did do that, but they had metal detectors and were all geared up. Yeah, that's funny.
Yep. And they could have just been fucking with me. I don't know.
Oh, they're definitely fucking with you.
Yeah, but it was fun anyways. I just wish that I'd seen a mine. That would have been cool.
Yeah, you never really. I mean, you never really know, like, unless you see the wires and stuff. But we were motor T, and we drove so damn fast. It was hard to. Yeah. It was hard to really notice them.
Yep.
But yeah, that's funny. We actually, that was our job. I was attached to engineers. I did convoy security, but we just drove a little cement truck out to the main MSRs and just filled them with cement.
Yeah.
And then the next hole, we'd fill that one. And it was, your asshole is definitely puckered all day.
Oh, yeah.
Every day, as soon as you leave the wire.
Yeah, that pucker factor gets pretty high at times.
Yeah. So you're out there, this stuff's happening, you're having multiple bad days. Like, what are you telling yourself at night? How are you getting through this progressively worse situation that doesn't seem like it's ever going to end?
I'm just sucking it all inside, putting in that little box that I'm going to deal with later.
Gotcha.
So it's all compartmentalized.
So you get through what, a 7-month deployment?
Yeah, 7 months over there.
And you come back, everything's, I mean, what is life now? How do you be happy to see your family? How do you be happy to leave your boys?
Yeah, I don't know if this was same for you, but leaving was like the weirdest experience, because at least for me, you pour so much into it. You pour your heart and your soul. You're bleeding out there. You're losing guys, and now you're just getting handed over to the next battalion, and it's a bittersweet moment, because part of you wants to stay and see the fight finished, and part of you wants to go home and see your family. You feel guilty for wanting to stay, and feel guilty for not wanting to be home right away, and all those conflicting emotions that go on. It was really surreal to leave. Just this really very bizarre experience, with so many mixed emotions. When I got home, right away I started to, have some of those PTSD symptoms, everything that I'd warned everybody about, but thinking, hey, I'm the Chaps, I'm not going to have PTSD. I've got faith, I've got, all this stuff I'm not going to have PTSD.
What were your symptoms?
But, he had the flashbacks, had the heightened awareness all the time, had some really bad flashbacks. Had a hard time completing thoughts. Would forget, and I still do this, I'll forget common words like, bowl or cup. Tell my boys, hey, go put your they're like, bowl? I said, yeah, go put it in the, in the sink. And I was like, yeah, go put your bowl in the sink. I mean, I would forget just regular words. I was driving to my church one day, and stopped at the stoplight, and I had no idea where I was. I had no idea if I was going to the church, if I was going to the store, no idea what day it was, what time it was. Didn't even know how I got there. I'm just sitting at a stoplight, and I'm like, where the hell am I? What am I doing? Just kept going in the same direction when the light turned. But I had no memory of even getting there.
I'm starting to think that you were on that truck with those guys.
Yeah, and it was just really freaked me out. Temper, 0 to 60 like that. Anybody come near me, in the car when you're driving, and I would just lose my shit.
And this was all new, right? Like you weren't like that in country.
No. Saw a fireworks display, and it was the green fireworks, and I had to pull over on the side of the road. I couldn't go past it. Got stuck in a hospital one time because there was a helicopter. I couldn't go through the hospital until the helicopter was gone. Because for me, that was the bad memory of loading guys on the helicopters. So had all those symptoms.
So you're acting funny. Life is obviously different and weird. Like your family, your wife, they're noticing this? How do you talk about it?
Yeah, and my wife was like, you get some help or I'm gone. It was at that point where she was having enough of that, insisting that I get some help. So I reached out to the VA. At that time, it was a little bit helpful, but not terribly. The psychologist there said I had adjustment disorder.
Well, no shit.
Yeah.
How do you go from seeing some of the darkest corners of the world and understanding the darkest realities that life and humanity can have and be, to come back and like pretend like everything's fine? How do you do that?
And it's you can't. It's hard to do. But I tried that and I saw her for a couple of years, and like I said, it was a little bit helpful to just be able to talk a little bit about it. That helped it a little bit, but still had just some really bad flashbacks. Ended up going back on active duty, and tried some different like informal or formal therapies. Just tried to work on that for probably for the next 15 years, trying to work on that. When I got here, when I finally retired, I tried doing the therapy again with the VA, and they had this was a little bit more structured program that they had. It was the cognitive processing therapy that I went through, so they had a little bit more regimented, and that was helpful. But I'd still see that, I couldn't go into a store without just that anxiety going through the roof. Couldn't go to like concerts, things like that. I was, sitting at a concert with to hear one of my boys perform, and saw somebody walking with it was a black umbrella, but in my mind's eye, I'm seeing an M16. And you just have that rush of anxiety just going into a crowd of people. Finally, just decided I had enough, and I said, well, let me try the medication. So reached out to the VA again and said, I think I'm ready to try the medication for this, and that's been really helpful to finally do that. I tried whatever I could to avoid it. I can understand why a lot of people don't like the medication, because it really puts a cap on a lot of the emotions, and there's this kind of this weird tension that part of you wants to let go of that hurt, and part of you wants to hold on to it because it means that you still care, and you still love these guys, and you still miss them, and you've been around that hurt and that anxiety so long that you kind of get used to it. That's just the way we're wired now. That of course you're going to go do dangerous stuff because, well, it's an adrenaline rush and you like it. You're used to being in the high drama, the high adrenaline, the high everything, the high speed, everything. You're just used to it, and taking that medication just kind of contains that a little bit. I don't know if that word really describes it well, but for me that's kind of it. That it's a little bit better contained. It's not on the surface like it was before. Driving here, there was somebody that was tailgating me. And, before that would, you kind of lose your shit when somebody does that. And now it's just like, whatever. I'm going to go whatever speed I'm going to go. If you can go around me if you want, I don't care. Yeah. So for me, that was a huge change. Not spinning out of control when you see a bag on the side of the road or a box, or, thinking something could be an IED, or seeing a pothole. So that's all, much more manageable now, much more contained than it was before. So that was a big help for me to be able to do that.
Good. That's good. I'm glad that there's an example of it working, because I tried to do it too, and like you, I describe it as it numbed my feelings.
Yeah.
But it numbed it to the point where I didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
And most importantly, I didn't care about my life or me.
Yeah.
And it made me get to the point where I was suicidal.
Yeah.
And that terrified me, because it's like there's this battle that's going on inside of you, and there's a part of you that does care.
Yeah.
And it's being outshadowed by this thing that's telling you that you don't. And so I stopped taking everything at one point in my life, and I kind of just went cold turkey, and through many years of self-diagnosis and self-therapy, trial and error, I've gotten to a point now where I feel how you do on the medication.
Yeah.
So it's I'm somewhere in between.
Yeah.
I used to get very angry with the tailgate, and I do sometimes, I still get angry, but it's when I have that anger, do I allow it to control the moment, or am I able to kick myself out of it almost immediately?
Yeah.
I'll be like, you motherfucker, get off my, and then I'll be like, shut up, stupid, just drive slow.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And everybody's different in that, and it's a very individual thing.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced it can be a both and, not necessarily an either or.
Right.
Try whatever works for you. And I understand why some people don't like it at all. It's been probably 6-8 months that I've been doing it now. So it's been helpful for me so far. It hasn't been to the point where I'm so numb that I don't care about me anymore.
Right.
But it helps me to, and I'm on the lowest dose they got. But it helps me to be able to kind of live my life a little bit better than I was before. But I totally get it that it could easily numb you too much.
Well, I think I was doing too much probably, and I think they were over prescribing me.
Yeah.
Because of the way that I was feeling at the time, and I was still younger, and I just had a lot of anger, and I was getting real. I just acted out quite a bit, and they're like, maybe we need to keep upping it, and by the time it got to whatever the peak point was, that's when I had my breakdown. Yeah. And I allowed it to just control me, and it was a weird time, but thankfully I made it through.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
we had a couple guys right afterwards that had died by suicide. There were a couple right after we got back, or there were a few guys that died by accidents that you kind of wonder what was that suicide, what was that. So we lost a lot. So I ended up they talk about post-traumatic growth, where you take some of these things and you turn it around, and one of those was I taught a suicide intervention class. Ended up being a master trainer on how do you train people to intervene when somebody's thinking about suicide. So did a lot of that. Wanted to work with as many vets as I could, as many people that had been through combat as I could. So kind of took that route after serving with 325. Yeah, and that's the one bit of advice I'd give to anybody going to the VA, and encouragement, is that they're very good about doing what you request. They're really good about that. You kind of have to do your own homework. Yeah. You can't just say, I'm here, fix me. You have to do a little bit of your homework and say, hey, would you check this? Would you check that? And they'll do it. Mm-hmm. I want to see this specialist and that specialist, and they'll do it. They're very good about doing those things. So I will give a big thumbs up to the VA as far as that goes. When we talk about the PTSD stuff, they when I first came in, they said, let's start you on medication, and I said no. I don't want to start on medication. I want to do the therapy route first. And they said, okay, good, we'll do that. So they got me linked up with a therapist, and we did the therapy route. And when I said, I think I want to try the medication now, they said, okay, we'll start the medication now.
Yeah.
So they're very good about that, and they will listen to you. But again, you have to do a little bit of your own homework, and you have to be your own advocate.
You should anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you should. No, it's crazy to think that you just walk into this room, and because this person has a wealth of knowledge about, medicine and how the body works, that they're just going to be able to look at you and know what's wrong. Like, you have to be in tune with your body. You have to know what you're doing. Like, there's so much more that we all should do, but I mean, especially veterans, because of, this system it's overloaded, right? So anything that we can do to help expedite our care is good for us. It's good for the other veterans.
Yep. And like you said, they get a few minutes with you. It's part of the job that they have to see so many people a day. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't educate yourself to know, well, I need to ask these questions, or I need to advocate for this specialist or what have you, they've only got a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So the questions you ask them, the things that you present to them, are going to help them guide the process a little bit better. So you're the only one in charge of your own health care. Don't just assume that they know best for you.
Yeah.
But say, okay, these are the symptoms. This is what's going on. What do you recommend? I read a little bit about this, and this. What do you think? And they can help guide you through the process.
Yeah. Have you tried anything like meditation, writing, anything creative? Like
I did, yeah. I did a lot of that stuff. Did some tried some journaling. Tried meditation. Tried a lot of that stuff. Just talking with fellow vets. Those things can help a lot. Just sharing your story with other vets, that can help a lot. A lot of those things they contribute, and like I said, I was working on this for probably 20 years before finally got some relief through the medication. But yeah, try those things first. It doesn't cost you anything to grab a journal and start writing.
Did you find one that worked more than another?
For me, just sharing my story with other vets, of finding that right outlet, of guys like us that have been there. We know what it's like. So you can share your story with each other. That's really helpful to be able to do that stuff. It was a challenge as a chaplain to learn how to share that. There were a lot of guys that would come in, and in my thinking, I would say, well, if they know that I'm a combat chaplain, then that's going to help them to open up. So I would tell them right away, yeah, I was with 325, and we lost 48 Marines during that deployment, and so I understand the combat mindset. Let's talk about your situation now. And there were too many guys that would say, man, what I went through is nothing compared to you. So I feel like a giant pussy coming in to talk to you because you're fine and you're the chaplain and you went through more than I did. So it would shut them down. So just had to learn how to learn to kind of share that experience, without turning it into that one-upping, because that happens a lot.
Yeah.
So I learned, they had me doing, I did a residency program through the VA in Hampton Roads, and I would learn that when they would start sharing their experience, to say, wow, when you were sharing that, that really brought up a lot of stuff in me about, I started to feel this anxiety, I started to feel this, I started to feel that because of the stuff that I've been through. I'm wondering if that's what you're feeling too. And they would say, yeah, that's what I'm feeling. And now they would start talking about how they were feeling about that experience. And it helped them to kind of put their finger on what they were feeling kind of identify what they were thinking, what was going on in their mind. So it took some training to learn how to do that, to learn how to help somebody to just open up. Otherwise, it's just one up and, hey, I got a better story than that.
Yeah.
And now the one guy feels like, man, I'm a wuss. What I went through was nothing.
Yeah.
So you want to avoid that for sure.
Is I don't know, man. It's insane.
Yeah, it was crazy. You end up your bar is reset, so to speak, and somebody comes up to you after something like this, and they say, "Yeah, my brother was murdered," and your first thought is, "It's just one dude. What's the problem?"
Yeah.
You're used to this.
Yeah.
You're used to 14 guys, 7 guys, 5 guys getting hit at a time, and so you're like, it's just one.
So that's the thing that I struggle with in my relationship with my fiance is her traumas in life, although they are still her traumas, so for her very traumatic, in comparison, I can't relate. It's like, how are you even upset about that right now?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it can make us seem like we're hardened or like we don't care.
Yeah.
Or like even the other night we went out to this this fundraiser right here downtown, and while we were at the fundraiser, a woman passed away in the bathroom. And towards the end of the night, they found her. They kicked the door down and come out and they yell, "Does anyone know CPR?" Right? I do, so I run in there to help.
Right.
And as soon as I get in there, I look at her and I know she's gone. She's been gone for a while. She's really blue, starting to turn purple.
Yeah.
And there was a nurse who started working on her, and no one had to do anything really, but it turned into this whole situation that was very chaotic, and there's a lot going on, and I just remember being in the middle of it, just calm. And I was kind of just there as support for the woman that had invited us to the party, because she was our realtor. She was holding the woman's hand, praying as the other woman is working on her, and I just remember like, it's just, we can all stop.
Yeah, it's just another day.
Yeah. But I noticed myself in that moment, and then the husband came in, or whoever, it was her companion, and he was really wanting to know if she was going to be okay. And no one was paying attention to him, and he just kept asking, and I remember grabbing him. I was like, "Sir, she's gone. She's been gone for a while. So if you just want to go sit down, and someone will come talk to you soon." And then I went and was telling my fiance, because she was there, and I was telling her what happened, and she's like, "How are you so calm about this? How are you not like?" Because she was all worked up and crying, and it was like this whole thing, and I was like, "Am I? No, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
It's just not."
Yeah, it was weird when I first came back. I started to volunteer as a police chaplain back in Indiana because that was kind of the only place I felt normal. Was, being out on an accident scene, being at the scene of a suicide, the scene of a murder. That's the only place that I felt like normal and at peace. Was, the guy that crashed his motorcycle and ended up dismembering himself because he hit the guardrail, and so I'm walking down the road. It's like, oh yeah, there's his arm. It's like, man, that's a nice tattoo. I wonder where you got that tattoo. So, boy, that must have been a big guy. Look at the size of his arm. And I'm saying these things and thinking these things, and it's you feel normal around that kind of stuff after a while, and
Isn't that crazy?
It is. Because
I was thinking that too as I was in that situation, because I don't see that much anymore in real life. So in the middle of it, it oddly felt peaceful.
Yeah, it feels normal.
Yeah.
You finally feel normal, which is kind of weird. It is.
I'm only realizing it right now talking to you. Because I remember her and I getting in a fight, and she's like, "Why aren't you upset about this?" And I'm like, people die. Like, she died while she was in the bathroom. no one knew. It's not like anyone neglected her or,
Yeah.
you know, it was not, she just, that happens.
Yeah, nobody went in and shot her or stabbed her.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it kind of resets what's normal for us, and it's very, very different than most folks.
So do you still do that kind of stuff, or?
No, I've kind of stepped away from that, and in retirement, you know, after I left active duty, I just wanted to just kind of step away. Like I say, I'm kind of the anonymous veteran. You know, I'm not all Marine Corps up and things like that, like yourself. You know, I just want to kind of fade into the distance and just kind of take care of myself now, and you know, work in my garden, take my kids back and forth to school.
But you still show up to the VFW and Monument Terrace and things like that. So is there a part of you that still wants to be connected? And
a little bit. I think it's always good to have that little bit of connection, to have that fellowship. You know, somebody who's been in the same place. That's always good. And I'm so glad that we met and got to talking about Iraq and just our connections. That's always good to have that connection. But I don't need to be knee deep in it anymore. But I do need that connection. Don't want to completely isolate myself.
Well, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Now that I know you're here,
yeah,
I need you, man. I need you.
Yeah.
But also,
absolutely.
like, I feel like, you know, this perspective, and I've caught myself saying this a few times because I got interviewed, which you definitely should have been interviewed instead of me. But this perspective that we have, I feel like it can be used in a positive way in our community to somehow be like the mediators in some of these local situations, and because it seems like, you know, people get so worked up and they want to have these fights and these battles and left versus right, and it's like everything is so dramatic and none of that shit matters.
Yeah, it's kind of weird when we as a people, as a community, when we don't have like a common enemy like the Taliban, when we don't all have that common enemy, we look for an enemy somewhere else, and it turns into left versus right. It turns into, you know, whoever against whatever evil you're outraged about today. It's better when we have that common enemy, and we could all say, yeah, these guys are bad, and we can focus our attention on these guys are bad, and let's take care of it. So now, without that, you know, like in you know, the difference in the Marine Corps when you're actively going out doing deployments in kinetic experiences, you've got one focus, and when all that goes away, they turn internal, and now it's all about, you know, are your shoelaces tied the right way, you know, and silly crap like that. You know, are you properly bloused, and let me do your uniform inspection, and you're worried about silly stuff like that because you're not focused on, okay, let's go take care of bad guys. So you focus on the little things instead of the big things. Because
if you don't have that fight within, then what's the purpose?
Yeah, you got to fight somebody.
You have to fight something.
Yep. You got to be against something and for something, and we find it wherever, whether that's politics or whether that's, you know, whatever.
Sports.
Yeah, sports.
All these other things that are designed to make you one side or the other, for or not for. Yep.
There's a lot of stuff that wants you to be polarized one against the other, and that's kind of the unfortunate. It's fortunate in a way and unfortunate in another way. That fortunate that we don't have this enemy out there right now, but it's unfortunate that it makes us turn internal and fight the fights that we're doing right now.
So how do we? So that's what I'm thinking. Like, we have these people that are on a board that are somehow injected into some of these arguments and some of these issues locally, so we can really kind of keep people focused on, okay, how do we fix the actual issue instead of just, you know.
Absolutely. You know, and to be fair, like when you have a lot of politics, a lot of it is, you know, we want the best for the community, but the difference of opinion is, how do we go about that best? And what does best to look like.
Well, the community is broken up into different subgroups, so it's like anytime a decision's made, it affects everybody differently.
Yep. Yeah, and guys like us, we can help kind of bring in that big, broader perspective of, hey, look, we don't have people planting bombs in our community. We don't have IEDs when you go down the street. People aren't dying on the street corner.
I'd argue every once in a while in Rivermont, there's a nice little pothole that'll catch me slipping.
Yeah.
I won't be paying attention. Like, where am I? All right, we're in Lynchburg. Life is good.
Yep. Absolutely. But we can offer that perspective to a lot of people and life is good here. This is a great community.
It really is.
A great veterans community. A lot of people looking out for each other around here. So I'm glad I'm here.
How long have you been here now?
About a year and a half, almost 2 years now. So it's a good community. I like it.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot slower than being out in the Hampton Roads area, or certainly much slower than the DC and the DMV area. I'm glad to be out of that area. But it's a nice community to be in.
Well, glad to have you. Not that I'm the representative, but man, I'm so glad you're here. And I look forward to hanging out with you more at Monument Terrace. And hopefully, the VFW and maybe eventually down the road, the Lynchburg Area Veterans Council.
Yeah.
And I would like to get to a point where, we are kind of mediating some of these scenarios that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's really where our minds and our experience and perspective can be used to do the most.
Absolutely.
So
I'm trying to get involved with the Valor Farms. I'm trying to get.
I'm out there. What are you trying to do?
Trying to work as a chaplain down there. So I just got in my volunteer application a couple of days ago.
Who have you met down there?
Just talked to a couple people, but I couldn't. I don't remember who it was.
Well, let's plan a day. Let's go down there and talk to General Deeds.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys. I've been out there. I've done some video work for them, and I go out and ride with them, and I love it out there. It's amazing.
It's like 15 minutes from my house. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good place.
Do you ride?
Yeah, it's been years. I used to. We kept horses when I was a kid.
Let's go out there and ride sometime this week. Well, whenever day you have open next, let's go out there and meet Jake and get on some horses. And
sounds good.
And introduce you to Bob.
Sounds good. We'll have to do that.
Well,
all right.
Awesome, man.
Hey,
thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Glad we had this chance to sit down and chat.